It was a quiet morning over West Africa when Ibrahim Traoré boarded the commercial flight from Accra to Ouagadougou. No presidential jet, no security convoy. Just a plain seat in economy class next to a crying baby and a sweating businessman. The stewardess barely glanced at him. He wore a simple khaki shirt. No insignias, no medals, only the sharpness of his eyes betrayed who he was. A young man, yes, but in those eyes lived the weight of a nation and the fire of 1,000 marches. If you are a lover of good governance, hit the subscribe button as we bring you more of Ibrahim Traoré. Halfway through the flight, a group of loud passengers seated near the back began to argue over overhead space. One, dressed in designer clothes and confidence, bumped into Ibrahim without so much as a glance. "Watch it, peasant," the man sneered. "Not everyone here scrapes by in a uniform." Ibrahim said nothing. He offered a polite nod, adjusted his seat, and resumed reading a worn paperback, The Wretched of the Earth by Fanon. The stewardess passed by, offering him a choice between chicken and beef. When he asked for water, she sighed loudly. "Sir, you need to speak up. You're holding up the line." Again, he only smiled. The kind of smile that knew time would explain everything. When the plane landed in Ouagadougou, the gate was unusually quiet. A few suited men waited by the exit, flanked by soldiers. As passengers began to disembark, the same stewardess gasped. The loud man from earlier froze mid-step. President Ibrahim Traoré stood up calmly, now flanked by aides who had just boarded. No speeches, no accusations, just a nod of acknowledgement as he walked past the ones who had dismissed him. One soldier whispered to the stewardess, "Next time, treat every soul with dignity. You never know who's leading your country." And with that, Ibrahim disappeared into the sunlit terminal, the president who needed no throne to command respect. The murmurs didn't die down even after President Traoré left the terminal. Passengers stood frozen, caught between shock and shame. The loud man from earlier, now visibly shaken, tried to recall every word he had uttered on the plane. Each syllable rang louder in his head: peasant, scrape spy, uniform. Outside the airport, the convoy waiting for the president moved without fuss. No sirens, no chaos, just discipline. Traoré sat quietly in the back seat of a dusty Land Cruiser, his eyes on the city he'd sworn to rebuild. His aide, Karim, finally broke the silence. "You could have said something, you know." Ibrahim turned to him, half smiling. "Why? To remind them who I am?" "No, Karim. It's better they see who they are." The car passed through the heart of Ouagadougou, where markets buzzed and youth painted murals of heroes past. Traoré watched them with a mix of pride and burden. Power, he knew, wasn't in titles, it was an example. And the flight was just another test, a reminder of how far the people still had to go to unlearn the colonized mind, the instinct to judge, to bow to wealth, to dismiss humility as weakness. Later that evening, a photo leaked on social media, blurry but unmistakable. The young president in economy class, knees cramped, book in hand. It went viral in hours. "This is our leader," one caption read. "Not gold watches, not foreign suits, just fire and duty," wrote another. And then came the apologies. The stewardess posted a heartfelt message. The loud man, revealed to be a minor businessman with connections, issued a public statement of regret. But Ibrahim didn't respond. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than their noise. A week later, during a youth leadership summit in Ouaga, Traoré took the stage. "I sat in economy not because I had to," he said, "but because the president should never forget what it means to sit among the people. If you lead from above, you forget who you serve. If you lead from beside, you never will." The room erupted, not in claps but in conviction. The next day, schools in Ouagadougou began holding impromptu debates. "What does leadership look like?" teachers asked their students. The younger ones drew pictures of a man reading in an airplane seat, while teenagers quoted his words like scripture: "Lead from beside, not above." Across the country, the story morphed into legend, not because of drama, but because of how ordinary it was. Farmers in Kaya discussed it over millet beer. Soldiers in Fanon passed it on during patrols. Even opposition leaders, long skeptical of the president's youth and ideology, found themselves pausing. But not everyone was moved. In the capital's quiet corners behind polished doors and European-made desks, some men watched the rising tide of Ibrahim's popularity with unease. The old elite. The ones who had worn power like a birthright and watched it slip from their fingers. They didn't fear a gun, they feared an idea. And Ibrahim, walking without guards and speaking without a script, was an idea. "He's building a myth," one of them said. "No," corrected another, "he is the myth now." And so they plotted. Not with bullets, but with influence through media networks, foreign ties, and whispers in diplomatic halls. If they couldn't defeat Traoré on the battlefield, they would try to drown him in doubt. But Ibrahim knew. In a meeting with his inner circle, he stood before a hand-drawn map of Burkina Faso. No digital projection, just paper and lines. "They will test us," he said. "Not just with threats, but with comfort. They will try to tempt our people with old habits, foreign favors, easy exits. But remember, every bribe is a chain in gold." His ministers nodded, young, loyal, determined. A new campaign began, not for votes for values. Ibrahim ordered state-run media to highlight acts of honesty by ordinary citizens. A woman returning lost money. A teacher walking miles to keep her school open. A mechanic refusing a bribe. The story of the flight was only the spark. Now, the fire was spreading. And in a quiet village near the Ghanaian border, an old griot spoke to children gathered under a baobab tree. "One day, you will tell your grandchildren of the time a man boarded a plane unknown and stepped off remembered." As Ibrahim Traoré's influence grew, so did the resistance in silence. International envoys began to circle like vultures, their smiles practiced, their offers wrapped in aid but laced with conditions. One morning, Traoré received a sealed envelope marked with no insignia. Inside was a note. "There are easier ways to rule. You just have to sit down." No name, no signature, just a folded slip of paper with a single ivory bullet taped to the back. Karim, his closest advisor, turned pale when he saw it. "Do we respond?" Ibrahim placed the paper in a drawer. "No," he said. "Let them wonder if it rattled me." But that night, alone in his modest residence, not a palace, but a two-room flat near the old university, the weight pressed on him. Not fear, not even anger, but the ache of vision. The knowledge that leading with integrity was not just difficult, it was dangerous. He sat in the dark, staring at the city lights beyond the window. "Am I just a symbol now?" he wondered. "And if I fall, will the people keep rising, or fall with me?" The next day, he visited a mining town in the north, unannounced. No cameras, no speeches, just dust, sweat, and the heat of buried gold. There, he found children working beside men 3 times their age, digging with rusted tools for scraps of ore they barely understood. When the town chief greeted him, embarrassed and apologetic, Ibrahim raised his hand. "Don't apologize," he said. "We inherited a poisoned earth, but we will not pass it down the same way." He sat with the workers, eating from the same bowl of tow and peanut sauce. One boy, no older than 10, looked up at him and said, "They say you're the president. Why do you come here like this?" Ibrahim smiled, wiping his hands on a rag. "Because if I only stay in the palace, I forget what the country tastes like." That line once again made its way across the country. Meanwhile, in the capital, the opposition made its move. A coalition of former ministers and businessmen announced a national dialogue, not sanctioned by the government. Funded quietly by foreign lobbies, it called for stability, moderation, and the return of experienced hands. The message was clear. Ibrahim's fire was burning too fast. But instead of suppressing it, Traoré did something few expected. He attended. He walked into the summit without an invitation. Alone. No entourage. Gasps filled the room as he took the microphone. "I hear you speak of stability," he said calmly. "But some of you were stable while our people starved. You want moderation? Our people have moderated their pain for decades. And experience? Show me what experience did for the child digging for gold yesterday." He paused. "You are free to speak. I will not silence you. But know this, I came not to be liked. I came so we could all stop pretending." And he walked out. That night, the streets erupted with drums, chants, and dancing, not for a man, but for what he stood for. The Lion of Ouagadougou wasn't just leading a nation, he was awakening to it. It began with a silence. One of Ibrahim's most trusted ministers, Mori Diallo, the Minister of Infrastructure and a childhood friend from the barracks, stopped attending cabinet meetings. First it was illness, then urgent travel, then no response at all. At first, Ibrahim ignored it. People faltered under pressure. The work was hard. But then came the report from internal security. Diallo had flown to Abidjan under a false name. He had been seen entering the residence of a former Burkinabe president, a man exiled after the military transition, now living under the quiet protection of a multinational mining corporation. Karim dropped the file on Ibrahim's desk. "He's bargaining," he said grimly. "They're offering him power, maybe even your seat, if he can turn enough of the cabinet." Ibrahim didn't speak. He stared at Diallo's photo for a long time. It wasn't anger in his eyes. It was mourning. "I broke bread with this man," he whispered. "We bled in the same boots." Later that evening, he summoned his security chief. "Bring him back," he said, "alive and quiet." But it was too late. The next morning, a video leaked. A polished, high-production message aired first on foreign satellite channels, then spread across social media. Diallo appeared in a tailored suit, seated in a studio lit like a presidential office. "My country has been hijacked," he said. "We were promised freedom, but we are ruled by a man obsessed with ideology, not progress. The international community must act. Ibrahim Traoré has lost control." It was the first time someone had tried to split the people with rhetoric from within. But Traoré didn't flinch. He appeared the next day at a town hall in Bobo Dioulasso, no teleprompter, no bulletproof vest. "They say I've lost control," he said. "But you don't control a people, you walk with them. And if walking with the poor means losing the favor of the powerful, then I will walk barefoot." Applause didn't just fill the room, it spilled into the streets. Traders, students, farmers, they flooded markets and courtyards with chants of, "Nous sommes Ibrahim! We are Ibrahim!" But even as his words lit fires, he knew shadows were moving faster now. Diallo was not alone. A meeting was taking place in Dakar. Representatives from 3 West African nations, along with private foreign envoys, discussed a stabilization initiative for Burkina Faso. Intelligence sources called it what it was: a soft coup, economic strangulation, diplomatic isolation, media war. Traoré's challenge had evolved. It was no longer about mining contracts or national pride. It was about who truly owned the future of Africa, its people, or its proxies. Back in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim stood before a quiet, candle-lit gathering of his inner circle. "I won't arrest Diallo," he said. Gasps echoed in the room. Karim leaned forward, confused. "Why not?" "Because we fight ideas with better ideas, not chains," he replied. "Let the people see his truth and judge for themselves." He looked out the window, where the moon rose above the broken skyline. "This is the price of walking without fear," he said. "Sometimes the knife is held by the hand that once saluted you." A week after the leak, the country held its breath. Rumors whispered through markets and mosques that France had frozen informal aid channels, that ECOWAS leaders were holding emergency consultations, that military leaders in 2 bordering nations had been approached with proposals to intervene for regional stability. But Ibrahim Traoré remained composed. If anything, he became even more visible, visiting schools, meeting women's cooperatives, touring military bases, not behind glass, among the people. One night, after meeting with a group of Pan-African youth organizers, a sealed envelope was handed to Karim under the table. Inside, satellite images. A private airstrip in eastern Burkina Faso. A cargo plane. Multiple armored vehicles. Karim's voice shook as he briefed the president. "It's real. They're preparing for a coordinated strike, not with foreign boots, but with Burkinabe hands. Diallo has armed men. Some of our former officers, they've joined him." Ibrahim closed his eyes. "The disease is not foreign," he said quietly. "It's in our blood, self-doubt, fed by foreign sugar." Then came the call. Mori Diallo. A secure line. Karim wanted to record it. Ibrahim refused. "I know you're listening," Diallo's voice said, smooth, calculated. "There's still time, Ibrahim. You can leave with dignity. Accept a transition. Step aside, let the country stabilize. I'll ensure you're safe." Ibrahim responded calmly. "And who stabilizes the people you sold out for contracts and committee chairs? Who speaks for the boy digging gold while you drink champagne in Abidjan?" A pause. Then Diallo's voice hardened. "This isn't personal. It's political. You're in over your head." "No," Ibrahim said, voice low but clear. "I'm finally standing where most leaders are afraid to, with my feet in the mud, and my head still high." The call ended. A choice had been made. That same night, Ibrahim addressed the nation live. "I have been offered a way out," he said. "A golden path paved with silence, submission, and self-betrayal. But I will not walk it. If they come for me, they will not find me in a palace. They will find me where the people stand." The camera panned out. No fancy set, no suit. Just Ibrahim in his old captain's jacket, beside a chalkboard with the words, "Dignity is non-negotiable." Within hours, youth mobilizations ignited across the country. Not ordered, not paid, voluntary. Everywhere from Banfora to Dori, young people began organizing community patrols, guarding communications towers, reinforcing bridges as if the people themselves had become the nation's last line of defense. International outlets started changing their tone. "A leader who doesn't beg," read one headline. "The new face of resistance," read another. And then, an encrypted message arrived. From inside Diallo's camp. "A defector. An officer. Young. Conscience heavy. They're moving in 3 days," the message read. "Diallo will make it look like a civilian transition, but the weapons are ready. And he's not working alone." Ibrahim looked to Karim. "It's time," he said. "For what?" Karim asked. Ibrahim stood up, straightened his jacket, to show them that the spirit of a people cannot be overthrown. 3 nights before the planned coup, a strange quiet fell over Ouagadougou. It wasn't fear. It was focus like a drumbeat before war. In the shadows of ministries and abandoned barracks, Diallo's agents prepared, trucks hidden in warehouses, uniforms smuggled in, disinformation planted online. They were ready to flip the narrative to paint Ibrahim Traoré as the threat, and themselves as the saviors of the state. But what they did not count on was the people. By dawn, every major road in and out of the capital was lined with civilians unarmed but unyielding. Students sat on rooftops with binoculars. Farmers created human checkpoints. Artists painted resistance slogans on walls faster than soldiers could erase them. A country once divided by fear was now united by one truth. This is our moment. This is our line in the sand. In the military base just outside the capital, Diallo prepared to move. The signal was given. But then, the convoy halted. The lead truck's driver, a young sergeant, stepped out, dropped his weapon, and stood in the middle of the road. "I won't turn my rifle on a president who eats from the same bowl as my mother." His comrades followed, one by one, truck after truck. Mutiny not of rebellion, but of conscience. Diallo, watching from the base command post, could only stare. And then the doors opened. Ibrahim walked in. No guards, no gun. Just him, dusty boots, worn jacket, and the weight of 20 million hopes behind his eyes. Mori Diallo rose, stunned. "How?" "I didn't stop you," Ibrahim said. "They did." He gestured toward the windows, where crowds had gathered silently beyond the gates, like a sea of truth no bullet could drown. Diallo's voice cracked, a mix of rage and regret. "You think this will last? One day, they'll turn on you too." Ibrahim stepped closer, calm. "If they do, it will be because I've failed them, and I will deserve it. But today, you failed yourself." He turned and walked away. No handcuffs, no public execution, just justice in its purest form exposure. By nightfall, Diallo's forces had disbanded, his allies fled or surrendered. The attempted coup ended not with violence, but with a collective refusal. Ibrahim addressed the nation one final time that week. "I am not your savior," he said. "I am your servant, and this country, this dream, it belongs to you, to the women who rebuild, to the youth who refuse silence, to every soul who dares to believe we are more than what they say we are." And then, without fanfare, he returned to work. No parade, no portrait ceremony. Just another morning in the mud with dignity as his armor, and the people as his shield.